I kind of wanted to do something on fishing brush because it's obviously it's one of my favorite things to do because it's so target specific. I mean, and when I say that is you know where the fish is going to be. It's not like fishing a whole line of docks or fishing a huge grass bed. You're making one specific cast at one specific target, and if there's a fish there, you know that's where he lives. So you've pretty much eliminated all the water around it. I think I've done a seminar with Bass U before on fishing isolated structure, and this is kind of where I learned this from, was at Lake Norman. We run a lot of brush piles and stuff. So I'm just going to try to break that down as how I put that into a tournament aspect, the best way to utilize it and the best way to fish it as far as active fish and inactive fish, and try to get the most bites you can. So anybody have any questions before we get started and dive into it? I mean, does everybody like fishing brush? Or good deal, because I'm telling you, there's nothing like pulling up somewhere and knowing the exact cast you need to make. And the beauty of it is when you're fishing brush is being able to make that exact cast, you know, and knowing right where that fish is, you can cover a lot more water. You're not covering it with your trolling motor, you're covering it more with your outboard running between spots. But most brush piles, if there's a fish there, you're going to get bit within the first 4 or 5 casts. So you're still fishing fast. You may run a half a mile, set the boat down, make 4 casts. If you get bit, keep fishing. If not, roll on to the next ones until you, and you can, it lets you run a lot of high percentage areas, high percentage places, making the correct cast to get, you know, hopefully the 5 biggest bites you can out of them. And the one place that I've utilized this technique a lot is Lake Eufaula. The last 3 times I've been there, I finished second twice and won one. And all I was doing was running brush all day, 70 or 80 brush piles a day. I'll pull up, make 5 or 6 casts, crank up, run to the next one, make 5 or 6 casts. And I know throughout the course of that day, I'm not going to get bit on but maybe 15 of those brush piles, but I'm going to have a chance to catch 5 big fish by hitting those type places where one big fish is going to live. I mean, you're not fishing for a group of fish, because to me, that isolated structure like that is going to hold that one biggest fish in the area. He's going to set up camp in it. He's going to make it his home. He's not going to tolerate a bunch of 1.5-pound, 2-pounders around him. And so you're targeting those one single big fish to get that one big bite that's going to win an event for you. So let's jump into 2 different categories of brush. I break it down as offshore brush and like shallow bank related brush, which would be brush on docks and stuff like that. You know, 7 feet or less, or brush you see sticking out of the water up on a flat or something. I'm going to start out talking about the offshore stuff because that's kind of your more isolated, out on flats, out on points and things like that, humps, anywhere you've got a high spot, especially on a herring lake or somewhere like that, they put the cane piles and stuff out. So that's places to start looking on a lake. Any lake is any hump, point, or high spot. Your most obvious water feature as far as depth change or something like that is where people put a lot of brush. And I myself, I've never put brush out really. Maybe one time I've put a couple of brush piles out, but with side imaging today, I mean, you can go find brush pretty much everywhere. So don't be scared to get out there and aisle around. That's the key component to finding brush, is you've got to put time in looking for it. I mean, you know, if you're eating lunch or something out on the water during a practice day, you know, crank up the, don't sit under a shade tree and eat lunch. Crank that motor up, turn the side imaging on, just let the boat idle around points or something while you're eating, and just try to utilize every minute you have on the water to learn something. So starting out fishing offshore brush, like I said, start out looking on points, the sides of pockets, and then we'll get into the dock aspect later. But when I find a brush pile, there's 3 main ways I attack it. In any time of year, it doesn't matter if it's spring, winter, post-spawn, summertime, any time of the year, I'm going to start out with my first cast is going to be with a fast-moving reaction bait. And my thought process on that is I want to catch the biggest, most aggressive fish that's in that brush pile. I want to give him a shot at something moving fast. And also that allows you to cover more water too if you can get on that tight bite. But in practice, that's how I'll start out. I want to start out with a fast moving bait to get a reaction strike, and if that doesn't work, I'm going to go to a slower moving power fishing technique like throwing a jig or something like that. And then if that doesn't get bit and I still feel like there's fish there, I should be getting bites, I'll break down and go with the finesse swim bait or a shaky head. But the way I'm going to break it down first is the fast moving baits. And let me start out by saying that pretty much the only time of year I don't really fish a lot of brush is when fish are spawning, unless it's really shallow brush, like 3 feet or less. So pretty much any other time of the year, I mean, fish use brush pre-spawn, they winter around brush when you get bait and crappie in it. Post-spawn, they get around it with the bluegill. Summertime, they're going to live on some type of structure, brush pile. And so pretty much all year but spawn is perfectly good time to fish brush piles. And what I'm talking about when I first pull up there.
It's Mike Iaconelli. This is Bass U TV.
Here's what's awesome about Bass U TV.
You get the top instructors.
Real tools that help you catch more fish consistently.
And that's why you want to check out Bass U TV.
Join the Bass U family.
Welcome to Bass U TV.